Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2016 National Crime Victims Service Awards ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the presentation of colors by the Joint Armed Forces Color Guard and the performance of the National Anthem by the U.S. Marine Corps Brass Quintet. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, David S. Ferriero, Archivist of the United States.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the more than 3,000 employees spread across our 46 facilities in the United States, it's an honor for us to serve as the host of this afternoon's award ceremony. And I'm glad to recognize Attorney General Loretta Lynch, Assistant Attorney General Karol V, Office of Justice Programs, Ms. Joy Frost, Director of Crime Victims Everywhere. And the National Archives preserves the documents which gives us those rights. Most importantly, to make the records available so that the American public can hold its government accountable for its actions and learn from our past. We are the final destinations for the most important records of the United States, that 1 to 3% deemed by departments and agencies to be important enough for permanent preservation. We are responsible for the records of 275 executive branch agencies and departments, the White House, and the Supreme Court. The National Archives, of course, is the home of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, known collectively as the Charters of Freedom. And while you're here in the building, I hope you have a chance to wander upstairs and take a good look at those documents up close and personal. Thomas Jefferson said, "Information is the currency of democracy." Simply put, the National Archives and Records Administration is the keeper of one of the most important parts of that currency, the records created by our government. John Russell Pope, when he designed this building, called it a temple to American history. He believed only a monumental building in his beloved neoclassical style could appropriately showcase the most treasured documents of our democracy. He made the National Archives building taller than the neighboring structures, surrounded it with a moat, and set it at an angle to emphasize the importance of this building to the American people. He wanted everyone to know that records matter. Our records start with the oaths of allegiance signed at Valley Forge by George Washington and his troops and go all the way up to the tweets that are being created at the White House as I am speaking. It's a collection of more than 13 billion pieces of paper, 40 million marshals, the Office of Victims of Crimes, and many, many more. At the National Archives, history comes to life. We house the tangible reminders of where we have been, how far we have come, and what is possible. Each record, large or small, is a representation of a greater story, many of which are still being told today in daily life. The National Archives tells everyone's story. Again, welcome to the National Archives, and thanks for choosing this historic building for today's event.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joye E. Frost, Director of the Office for Victims of Crime.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the 36th observance of the National Crime Victim Service Awards ceremony. I want to start by thanking David Ferriero and his staff for hosting us in this amazing and historic venue for a second straight year. My thanks also to the U.S. Armed Forces Color Guard for today's presentation of colors and the U.S. Marine Corps Brass Quintet for their beautiful rendition of the national anthem. We are honored to have Attorney General Loretta Lynch join us for this award ceremony, and also very fortunate to have Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Justice Programs, Carol Mason, with us today. My thanks to all of my colleagues in the Justice Department and partner federal agencies who are here today, as well as our partners in the victim assistance field for your support of crime victims. We're joined by many other honored guests, too many to name each one of you, but it is a privilege to recognize our award recipients. Your amazing accomplishments and deeply moving stories raise awareness and hope for all crime victims, so thank you. Organizing the ceremony requires the dedicated work of many individuals. I want to acknowledge the lead OVC staff who planned and organized these events, Maria Berry and Maria Acker, as well as so many others in OVC. I would practically have to go down and do a roll call of OVC staff. I would also like to thank the staff of Kaufman and Associates for providing logistical support. And of course, I would like to thank the amazing Robin Smith and her staff at Video Action. For their work this year, once again, to produce the theme DVD and inspiring award tribute videos that we will view in a few minutes. I don't know how Robin does it in 2-minute snippets, but somehow she and her staff do that. I also want to acknowledge the continued partnership between OVC and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service to raise awareness of victims' rights and services during the month of April. For the 11th year, National Crime Victims' Rights Week theme posters and takeaway cards with toll-free numbers for victim assistance are being displayed in more than 15,000 post offices throughout the country that see traffic of over 7 million customers each week. And it's my understanding that many of the hotlines report quite a noticeable spike in calls to their hotlines during April. My thanks to the Postal Inspection Service. We are going to diverge slightly from our program. We're going to show the theme DVD later in the ceremony, as the Attorney General must leave this event no later than 2:35, which is why we took the photos earlier. And thank you again, General Lynch, for getting here early and allowing us to take those photos. I know I speak on behalf of the awards recipients that they're deeply appreciative. It's now my honor to introduce the Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Justice Programs. Carol Mason was nominated for this position by President Obama and confirmed by the Senate in April 23rd. Oh, on and on, but she's standing right here, so I won't. It's both a personal and a professional privilege to work for Carol and to introduce her today. Please welcome AAG Carol Mason.
Good afternoon, and I'm pleased to join you and Attorney General Lynch Joye for this celebration of National Crime Victims' Rights Week, and this is a celebration. I'm also grateful to David Ferriero and the staff of the National Archives for once again hosting our ceremony in this beautiful auditorium. I'm proud to be here with so many leaders from throughout the Department of Justice and from across the victim field as we honor the most committed, creative, and courageous people working on behalf of crime victims in America. Their work, reflected in the extraordinary accomplishments that you will hear about today, has done so much to advance the cause of victims' rights and services, and it has helped to make our country a more just and hopeful and more compassionate place. I want to thank Joy and her phenomenal team, so please join me in thanking OVC. For all they've done to make this event possible and for the outstanding work they do throughout the year. And I thank Attorney General Lynch, who by her presence today and through her actions every day sends a clear signal that the Department of Justice stands with crime victims. We've chosen a theme that reflects our solidarity with those who have been victimized, serving victims, building trust, restoring hope. We know that the effectiveness and integrity of our criminal justice system depends on trust. Faith in the aims and the actions of law is vital to public safety. Without it, true justice remains out of our reach. For crime victims, trust is not an abstract or impersonal notion. Under the leadership of Attorney General Lynch, the Department of Justice and the Office of Justice Programs are working to help our justice system reclaim the trust of our citizens. Victims and survivors are foremost among them. Under OVC's Vision 21 initiative, Joy and her team and their many partners are working hard to make sure that victim service programs and criminal justice field as a whole have their sights on regaining the confidence of the victims and the survivors for even the most basic medical attention. Gaining victims' trust also hinges on delivering the most effective services, which in turn depends on having the best information about what works. That's why Vision 21 is centered on expanding our base of knowledge through research and data. For too long, we've known too little about what victims really need and what's available. I'm proud that Joy and her counterparts in the Bureau of Justice Statistics and the National Institute of Justice are working together to change that. And they're working to bring us into the 21st century in some really unique ways with some digital things that we hope will unveil soon. Through our new data collection efforts and a robust research program, they're building a solid body of victim-related evidence that will enable advocates and service providers to reach more victims and provide even better services. And I have to really compliment the victims community because you all respond to the surveys at a much higher rate than other people. So we thank you for this responsiveness, which will help all of us provide better services. And we expand the number and quality of services and gain victims' trust, our ultimate aim to restore hope. Hope for victims that recovery is possible and that justice, true justice, is attainable. I'm excited about the work we're doing, and I'm excited about where the victims field stands today. In spite of the challenges, we are making progress. We are generating momentum, and I know that our successes will continue to build on each other. and I'm proud of all that we've achieved together and proud to count each and every one of you as partners. Keep up your outstanding work, and we will continue to make big change. So now it's my honor to introduce the person you really want to hear from today. Our keynote speaker, the Attorney General of the United States, the Department of Justice's chief victim advocate. Throughout her career, Loretta Lynch has fought hard on behalf of those who have been victimized. Her work to combat human trafficking exemplifies her deep personal commitment to supporting victims and survivors, a commitment that continues as her service as our nation's Attorney General. She has traveled to every region of this country and to many parts of the world carrying this message, your message. We will not tolerate the injustices and indignities perpetrated on our citizens, and we will take care of those who have suffered. We are fortunate to have an Attorney General like Attorney General Lynch on our side, and it's my privilege to introduce today the Attorney General of the United States, Loretta Lynch.
Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you all so much for that warm welcome. Thank you, Carol, for that kind introduction and for your outstanding leadership of the Office of Justice Programs. It is such an honor to be here with all of you today. Let me also commend Director Joye E, whose tireless efforts leading the Office for the Victims of Crime have helped secure justice and spur healing for countless crime victims. And let me also take a moment and thank David Ferriero for welcoming us to the National Archives, as well as to recognize the vital congressional partners who we hope are in attendance and indicated they would be here at this event. But first, but finally, and most importantly, let me welcome today's honorees. You are a truly inspiring and outstanding group. It is a pleasure to join you. Let me also welcome your family members, because in particular, when you are focused on the work of being the ultimate caregiver, we know that it can be a drain on those families who depend on you as well. And so let me also extend my thanks and my appreciation and my congratulations to all the family members who support you as you give so much to people in need. And let me just say at the outset how proud I am of all of you. You are amazing. You truly are. Now, the National Archives is a wonderful building in its own right. I hope that many of you have a chance to visit it and to see so many of the wonderful things that our archivists mentioned, but it's such a fitting location for this celebration because the accomplishments that we are here to honor today speak to so many of the ideals that are set forth in the founding documents that are enshrined right here. Now, by helping the victims of crime get the legal assistance that they need, you are furthering the essential promise of due process and equal protection under law. By helping victims reclaim their futures with confidence and purpose, you are restoring their claims to life, to liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And by using groundbreaking research to inform new laws and policies, you are taking part in the ongoing process of creating a more perfect union. I am so grateful for all that you do. And I want you to know that the Department of Justice is committed to supporting you and your work by defending the rights and the well-being of those affected by crime and by promoting a comprehensive, but most importantly, a victim-centered response. This is the only way in which we are effective. Now, we are trying to advance these efforts on so many fronts. For our young survivors, whose experiences can haunt them well into adulthood, as part of President Obama's My Brother's Keeper initiative, OVC and our Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention have awarded nearly $14 million to programs that support young survivors of violence. And through the Coordinated Tribal Assistance Solicitation, or CTAS, we have streamlined the application process for American Indian and Alaska Native tribes seeking Justice Department grants, allowing us to award tribes more than $620 million over the last 6 years for a variety of programs. And these programs include advocacy for the survivors of domestic violence, because the pain and the trauma endured by so many of our first Americans is a matter of national urgency for all Americans. Now, because of last year's increase in the Crime Victims Fund, the resources available to tribes under CTAS have more than tripled, which is only to the good. This amplifies our ability to empower the Native American and Alaskan Native communities. Now also, because honoring our elders means protecting our elders, OVC has also partnered with our Civil Division's Elder Justice Initiative to launch the Elder Justice AmeriCorps program, which will place approximately 60 attorneys and paralegals at organizations throughout the United States to provide legal assistance to elderly victims of crime and abuse. This is just a few of the things that we are working on at the Department of Justice, and frankly, we're led by you, we're inspired by you, and we gain our support and strength from you. In addition to extending these resources to the state, local, and tribal agencies, we're also providing training and technical assistance designed to provide guidance to our partners in the fight to protect victims who are always seeking new insights and new expertise. Just last December, we released new guidance on identifying and preventing gender-biased policing. At the end of this month, OVC will begin soliciting proposals for a pilot program to implement that guidance. And the agency or the organization that we select will receive approximately $5 million to establish up to 6 demonstration sites around the country. These 6 sites, this pilot program that we intend ultimately to span the country, is a meaningful step forward to addressing victims' needs as early as possible. And I'm also tremendously pleased to announce the upcoming release of a new protocol. This protocol will be for pediatricians, forensic nurses, and other healthcare providers who work with children. It will offer evidence-based recommendations for caring for child victims of sexual abuse. This protocol was developed, as are all good ideas, collaboratively, working as a team with partners from the International Association of Forensic Nurses, with children's hospitals, and with child advocacy centers, because the answers do not reside in any one of our organizations alone. Only by coming together can we offer strength, support, and true healing. And I'm hopeful that this protocol and all of the issues that I've raised here today will help bolster the efforts nationwide to care for these most vulnerable victims of sexual abuse, because no child should ever have to experience that kind of abuse, and no child who does should ever be forced to bear that burden alone. Now, beyond these projects and the programs that I've outlined, there is a very real and a very serious need for more reliable data about how we can assist the victims of crime most effectively. We all know what we feel works, and we all know what we've seen work, but we need to know the information that will let us know what truly works so that we can expand those programs and help even more people. And that is why we launched Vision 21, as previewed by AAG Carol Mason, the first comprehensive assessment of the victim assistance field in nearly 15 years. And this innovative project that we're really quite excited about is going to help us close the research gap and collect better data. And one of the most recent successes, is we actually have tried to start this already, and we had an excellent success just in January. Our Bureau of Justice Statistics, or BJS, completed a pilot test of a national census of victim service providers. This is the first ever national initiative to capture detailed information on the number, the characteristics, and the capacity of the many victim service organizations in the United States. It's so important that we know our partners and their resources as well. This pilot test, which was in the survey form, drew response rates of more than 80%. Now, typically when you send out surveys, marketers will tell you if you get 20 to 25%, that's considered a success. 80%, which surprises me not at all and should surprise no one in this room because it reflects the commitment and the dedication of all of our organizations to this important issue. And we're going to launch the full census later this year. And that census is going to complement our ongoing surveys of the victims of crime who know best what they need. and it will ultimately help us develop the cutting-edge policies and practices based on sound data. Now, I'm so excited to see what we can do with this information so that we can update our processes and improve our responses and provide the most effective assistance possible to every individual around the country who needs our help. Now, these are all important undertakings, and our work received a major boost when, for the second year in a row, Congress actually increased the budget of the Crime Victims Fund, actually increased the budget. This is the federal government's main funding source. And I'm happy to trumpet that because they actually did that, and it is a great thing. This is our main funding source for victim services and compensation programs, not just for us, but for every state and for every territory. And I want to thank Congress for standing with the victims of crime when they needed them most. But let me also call on them to increase and further that commitment going forward. That's what we need. Because caring for victims and survivors of crime, it's not a partisan issue. It's not a political cause. It is a national obligation, and it's a moral charge. That's what it is. Now, as you can probably tell, I'm tremendously proud of what the Department of Justice has been able to accomplish on behalf of victims of crime. But we do not work alone. And most importantly, we don't stand alone. We have all of you. Our work could never have been the same without the input, without the collaboration and the commitment of the groups and the individuals like the ones that we are honoring here today. All of you here today, and so many of your colleagues and your partners across the country, you serve as our eyes and our ears across this country and on the ground. You help us demonstrate that in the United States, crime is met with justice in its fullest sense. Now, of course, we enforce the law. We go after those who inflict harm, but if we stop there and we fail to hear the voices of those victims of crime, of those left behind by these tragic and dangerous events, then we cannot say, we can never say that justice has truly been done. And that is why your dedication is essential. You help victims move past their most difficult moments. You help restore their sense of possibility, their sense of hope. And you stand by them as they take the first steps toward reclaiming their lives and charting their futures. Now, each of you, in your own way, award recipients, your colleagues, everyone in this room alike, each of you has gone above and beyond in advancing that crucial mission. And through the course of your actions, you have done your part to help make this country more compassionate, more empowered, more resilient, and more just. Yes, you have done all of that. You inspire us all. And I want to commend you for your exemplary contributions, and I thank you for all that you have done and that you continue to do on behalf of the most vulnerable among us. Thank you for letting me spend a few minutes with you here today. But most of all, thank you for reaching out to people on what is arguably the worst day of their lives. Thank you for letting them know that there is a better and a brighter day ahead. And most importantly, thank you for making it so. Thank you so very, very much, and congratulations.
My thanks again, and that of OJP to Attorney General Lynch. She is amazing. It is such a privilege to have her as our Attorney General. And now we're going to see the 2016 theme DVD for National Crime Victims' Rights Week, Serving Victims, Building Trust, and Restoring Hope.
victims. They are daughters, they are sons, they are sisters.
When you're working with victims, the goal is to empower them, which means recognizing that you've got a lot of choices and you get to make them.
We can be a part of getting them into a safe place.
Whatever it is you need, we'll help you. And when you're ready to tell us what happened, we're here to listen. The Shade Tree serves people from all different sorts of circumstances. We help victims that decided today is the day to break free.
We have kids that come here from backgrounds with domestic violence. Either the mom has been abused, and in some cases the child has been abused, and they're fleeing from their abuser.
And as soon as our survivor walks in the front door, we start saying, how can we help?
Truckers Against Trafficking are the eyes and ears of the nation's highways, and we work in and through the trucking industry to combat the sex trafficking that's taking place along our nation's roadways.
Seeing these young girls working the lots over the years that I've been driving, I've always wondered how to help them, and now we could do something about it.
It was really, really important to us as Forge to ask fairly early on, what does it mean to organize in a community that has this much trauma in it? The things that make us not whole can be victimization, it can be prejudice. I mean, there are lots of things. And yes, we're focused on transgender survivors of violence, but in our heads, we know we're talking everybody.
Our primary goal was to remove any barriers that would keep a woman and her children from coming in. But when they came in and they left a pet behind, they wouldn't stay. They would go back because they knew that their animal was going to be abused or was starved, and that's their best friend.
It's just amazing for the families to be able to come and bring their dogs with them, or their cats, or whatever animal they might have, because their animals are a part of their family. And at some point, an animal could be therapeutic for a child.
The children do so well. They trust us. They intuitively know if we're kind to animals, we're going to be kind to people. By meeting the survivor where they are, that's the very first step in building trust.
In my lifetime, I never thought I'd have an opportunity to help somebody, and I actually have that opportunity now to be able to do that.
When you do what you do in order to get things...
We decided we have a moral imperative because this kind of activity, illegal activity, is happening at truck stops, at places that trucks frequent. So we want to make sure that we are part of the solution.
We would like to see the guy who used to think they just wanted to be out here, now he is actively looking. When he sees something, he's making a call. When law enforcement arrives on the scene, he is the one assisting, giving any more evidence. He's the one who's testifying in the court against that trafficker. We're creating a pathway where none existed, really.
The overlap of trauma and transness is so heavy. We are examples of survivors that went on to do advocacy work. So we've moved out into the polyvictimization area. We know there's a very good chance that they're also survivors of child abuse, domestic violence, maybe hate crimes. So a big part of our job when we train service providers is to explain how transgender people are different and how some of our needs are different. But we work really hard to put it in a context of humanity. The end goal is to empower everyone to be who they are and to know there's hope for healing.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Office for Victims of Crime presents the 2016 National Crime Victims Service Award Tribute Videos.
Wow, that's really scary. I'm so sorry that happened.
It's not easy to leave an abusive relationship.
You know, and if you're always wondering, you know, what he's gonna do next, if you're always wondering...
That first call for help is an extremely courageous call, and if we don't answer the phone, that person may not pick it up again.
Hay programas que pueden ayudar con
We are a lifeline.
legal o con consejería.
We really work hard to ensure that advocates are able to remain non-judgmental, that they can really be able to show empathy.
Well, you're not alone, and I'm sorry that you feel that way. And what are some things that you're doing to self-care for yourself?
We'll go through like the dynamics of what abuse looks like and what they deserve in a healthy relationship.
As an organization, we made the decision to be innovative and to think of creative ways to ensure that we're reaching young people.
What do y'all think?
And we then began to hear from young girls who were talking about being in extremely physically abusive relationships. We began to offer services via text messaging, to provide services to teens and young adults. It's the most private way for them to chat. No one can overhear their conversation. They're able to disclose what they want to disclose. They don't feel as vulnerable. We are in high demand, as are the services of local programs across the country. We're really trying to ensure that we're able to answer the call.
Hay varios programas en Chicago. Hay uno que se llama...
One of the challenges of the hotline is we rarely know what happens to our caller and our chatter.
That is a little tough, not being able to know what happens after the call when it's ended. But what I feel is really important is that they've gained that courage to reach out to someone. Just being able to empower someone is really important. I can leave in conversation and feel okay with it.
To a service where you can't make eye contact with someone, your voice is so powerful and important.
I really hope that you feel better soon.
We are restoring hope when someone who is surrounded by so much darkness is saying, my life maybe can look different than it looks right now.
Wow, it sounds like you're really isolated from any sort of support.
That is what hope is. It's really about what can we do to support them, whatever their decision is.
In Choctaw Nation, our elders are the foundation of the tribe. They play a significant role in who we are, what it means to be Choctaw. We began to look at and realize that there was an issue with elder abuse in the Choctaw Nation as early as 1994. So we talked about what was needed for our elders. Since that time, we've continued to build those victim services. A lot of us have our own tribal court systems, but a lot of times these crimes are not committed on tribal property, so it falls within the state's jurisdiction. And their approach a lot of times is just to go in and remove that elder. We want to keep our elders in the community. We want to look at the entire family and provide services to all the family. So we looked at developing a relationship with Adult Protective Services. We were the first tribe to do that in the state. And basically, what it does is it gives us the right to receive referrals from them, go out and help them with those cases. In addition, it gives them the authority to come on tribal property and make investigations as long as we are with them. Our elders are much more comfortable with a tribal person coming into their home.
Hello. How are you?
I think we're seeing more success at that and working with the entire family. We have a good working relationship with the state. They want us involved in those cases now. We have a really good group of elder advocates. It's not uncommon for me to get calls at 8 o'clock at night where someone is still with one of the elders, making sure they're okay. Their goal is to make sure our elders are taken care of, and that's what they're going to do. We are family, and we treat each other as such. You know, you'll know we are Choctaw by our love.
Crime victims' rights are civil rights. And those are rights that allow participation and input into the criminal justice process. When we first started, there was a great deal of education needed as to why victims did not then have rights and why they should have rights. I've been involved in the passage of rights dealing with how to inform victims, how to allow them to be present, how to allow them to be heard, how to protect their privacy, a whole number of rights that just didn't exist 30 years ago.
And with that, Mr. Chairman, we would urge the committee to give the
We're in the public policy area to try to make sure those laws and policies are friendly to victims, and we're helping individual victims navigate the criminal justice system.
We have 2 other cases in the trial court now where we filed a similar request.
In 1994, we were able to get a constitutional amendment passed in Maryland for crime victims' rights. It was a new concept, and it was important fundamentally because it raises victims' rights to a constitutional dimension where courts should provide it with more respect. When you help an individual victim, it's like you have a very narrow little paintbrush, and you're doing good things and you're helping one person. But when you can pass a statute, it's like a big paintbrush where you're helping hundreds of thousands or millions of people on a much grander scale to make their rights a reality.
During my doctoral work, I had a very interesting job. It was to be what's called a criminal justice planner, and my specialty was corrections. I was comparing what offenders were getting compared to what victims were getting, and victims were not getting anything. I thought that was unfair, and I wrote down a few notes on a flight from Miami to Tallahassee. By the time I landed, I had roughed out what became the victim ombudsman / victim advocate concept. A lot of people were looking for something that had to do with providing services, not just talking about it theoretically. Florida had the wherewithal to fund those initial projects, and pretty soon the idea spread throughout the United States. In 1976, I started thinking about creating a national organization. The National Organization for Victim Assistance became the vehicle by which the concept, the original simplistic concept of victim advocacy could be elaborated on and improved upon and tried in different settings, and that's as it should be. We want victims to have a place at the table of justice, like the offenders. We wanted victims to be given respect and dignity as individuals, as human beings. The idea of a world society of victimology came into being, and I was asked to serve as the first founding Secretary General. So those of us who were, in the early days, promoters of the original concepts of helping victims, now became teachers to other countries.
A lot of people benefit from Dr. Dusich's work. He's always trying to engage with people in the community doing volunteering work and educating people wherever he goes.
You remember the big R? Successive generations of victim service providers stand on the shoulders of the people who came up with the earlier ideas. The sample that we pick, in this case 10,000 families, it is part of my responsibility as a teacher and a researcher to point to those things that are available to become more effective, to bring the state of the art to a higher level of efficiency and effectiveness.
When we think about white-collar crime, we tend to think of, well, it's just money. This case was very different. In fact, this case was very similar to the impact that violent crime has on victims.
In 2009, the U.S. government announced a program that would allow American homeowners who were suffering financial distress to apply for a reduced monthly mortgage payment. And so SunTrust Mortgage solicited its customers to apply for the HAMP program.
A lot of these people thought, okay, I want to take a shot with this because I really want to stay in my house.
Homeowners who came into the program ended up being strung along for months and in some cases years. Some of the victims saw an obliteration of their credit scores. Some of the victims actually had their homes improperly foreclosed upon. We talked to victims who experienced divorce because the financial stress was so intense that their relationship simply couldn't survive it.
It was not long after we started to talk to a variety of victims that we realized how many people had been hurt and how serious that damage was for so many of them.
We uncovered evidence that SunTrust knew that the representations it was making to its customers could not possibly be true. We identified 32,685 victims. We wanted to create a restitution model that would get as many of those victims as close to full restitution as possible.
We convinced SunTrust to take a step forward and recognize that what they had done was wrong.
And so this settlement was designed to also compensate both the acute emotional harm and the stress, and then also some of the financial hardship that these people suffered.
It was very clear to us early on that if we did not do this work, that almost all of these victims would never get any kind of recovery. And this was just a unique opportunity to make that happen. And that's extremely satisfying.
The 2016 National Crime Victim Service Award goes to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Accepting on behalf of the National Domestic Violence Hotline is Miss Katie Ray Jones. The 2016 Professional Innovation in Victim Services Award goes to the Choctaw Nation Victim Services. Accepting on behalf of the Choctaw Nation Victim Services is Miss Linda Goodwin. The 2016 Crime Victims' Rights Award goes to Russell P. Butler. The 2016 Ronald Wilson Reagan Public Policy Award goes to Dr. John P.J. Dussich. The 2016 Crime Victims Financial Restoration Award goes to Assistant U.S. Attorneys from the Western District of Virginia, Stephen J. Flegger and Laura Day Rottenborn.
After college, I worked in Washington, D.C. for a nonprofit that focused on education about child abuse. And I used to spend evenings trying to clear my head. I would walk down along the mall and look at the monuments. And over time, it occurred to me that there weren't monuments to people who survived crimes. That really had an impact on me in terms of thinking about what role research can play in building a monument, a testament to survival. And research is a way of collecting the stories, the experiences of women and children, boys and men, who unfortunately we really often marginalize as a society, so that as a single voice, they may not be listened to.
Dr. DePrince has brought a whole new ethos in terms of community-engaged research that really places reciprocity at the core.
When you ask a participant to tell the story of surviving sexual assault or finding the courage to testify in a courtroom, you really have a social contract with the person you've talked with, a commitment you've made to them as a researcher to make their story matter. Here at the University of Denver, I have the great privilege of directing our Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning. My research team, the graduate students, the researchers with whom I collaborate, we have really brought a focus on building on what is known and extending knowledge into the unknown.
I guess she had some great questions.
Going from data to application actually requires talking with community partners at the very start of a project.
As a professional and as a survivor of rape, the importance of the research that Anne provides brings light to subjects that our society does not really want to delve into or recognize.
Building trust, restoring hope really echoes for me the core values I hold as a researcher. There are many ways to do research, and I think of research that's done well as something that can really empower victims and survivors. That's how you build the best monument to people's experiences of crime and of trauma.
Domestic violence and battering is not a behavior that we're born with. It's a learned behavior. My friends and I don't ever talk about that kind of issue because it was always seen as an inappropriate thing to discuss openly. When I was a sophomore in high school, I decided to become part of the Youth for Safety Club. We connected with a domestic violence agency here in Hawaii, and we were able to get these facts and these stories about domestic violence that is in my own community.
So these are a bunch of warning signs that could categorize a relationship as being abusive or unhealthy.
I was offered an opportunity to prepare a presentation. Then the participants at the youth conferences were shocked because they've never heard of this issue before. A lot of the schools pledged that they would make domestic violence an issue that they would advocate in their own communities. We've been doing this domestic violence awareness for a while, and we've had several members come into our club that shared about their personal experiences that have been exposed to domestic violence. I was very inspired that they actually had the courage now that they're in the Youth for Safety Club. It really has changed their mindset on how they look at things, and it really showed how powerful awareness could be just by itself. We want to be able to pilot a user-friendly curriculum open to all ages, available for teachers so that we could start educating the youth. If we get it officially mandated by the Department of Education, then we could open it to the rest of the schools in the state. Domestic violence has always been just a passion of mine. It's about respecting one another It's about being considerate to one another's culture, and I feel that if we were to find a solution to domestic violence, we would find a solution to a lot of worldwide issues that we have today.
The first time I woke up, I was lying on the floor, naked. I was being assaulted and raped. They were pouring alcohol down my throat. I was in and out of consciousness probably for 6 to 7 hours. When I woke up, a used condom was stuck to my stomach. It was the most disgusting moment of my life. And I immediately started blaming myself. I immediately started saying things like, I shouldn't have gone there, and I drank. I shouldn't have drank. Immediately the story went public. My name wasn't in the newspaper or on the news, but people knew it was me. And when I spoke with the DA said that it was going to be a really hard case. It was kind of a he said, she said situation. So I said, okay, I give up. I'm gonna drop the charges. I don't wanna do this. I learned to live a double life. I was successful in my job and I was educated. And then there's this other Brenda who was not able to sleep at night and hated herself. And I would fantasize about being able to just peel off all my skin and not have skin that had been touched by them. 16 years after the gang rape, I started going to counseling. I wanted to find happiness and I wanted to find peace. And I didn't even know I had a story. Honestly, I didn't think anyone cared. But on that day when I told my story, I felt like I had walked out of my prison of shame and silence. And I was one person for the world to see. That is when my advocacy began. Being inside the Capitol for me is really surreal because I get this overwhelming feeling that this is where change happens. This is where people get together and can make real, profound change. Last year, I helped to pass 3 laws. This year, I hope to pass 2 more. Back then, I wasn't told what my rights were. So on a college campus now in Oregon, if you're sexually assaulted, you were given a piece of paper in plain language that says what your rights are. And the idea that someone else won't have to go through what I went through means a lot to me. And that's where I find my healing, and that's where I find my justice.
I was 19 and I met a friend for breakfast, and at that restaurant there were 4 men. They saw us in the parking lot and kind of heckled at us, but it was a fairly small town, and so we just thought, you know, it's some stupid teenagers, and unbeknownst to me, they followed me home. I saw the car pull up, I saw somebody get out, and before I really knew it, he was struggling to pull me into his car. They started the sexual assaults right away, and the incident lasted almost 16 hours, and I was able to run to a house and go for safety. When you call 911, you go right to law enforcement. So your engagement and involvement with them sets the tone for the way that you view the whole system. And in my personal case, the #1 thing they did is said, "We believe you, we are here for you, it is not your fault. We will help you." Just those words make you feel like the system is working with you and not against you. My victimization happened in 3 separate counties, and so each county handled things quite differently, and that was new to me. I thought the system was the system and that you went through it the same as you would anywhere, but it wasn't the case. The idea of serving a victim and treating them as an important part of a case rather than just as a witness to the case was really a new idea in 1990 when I became a victim. One of the counties, Cass County, had a victim advocate, which I had never heard of, and their role was to support me as the victim and my family. The other 2 counties didn't have their services set up, and I kind of had to beg for help. And that really began my urgency to stabilize the state and to level what was happening for victims. Breaking into law enforcement as a law enforcement-based advocate was a little difficult. I'd like to talk today about how victim services can... But they were willing to listen to my personal story, and I think they were inspired that I chose to go ahead and survive. I work with victims to encourage them to make that choice every day. My biggest place of refuge is my faith. To be able to walk with someone in their darkest hour and just knowing and understanding that this does not have to define them, that they can have some triumph on the other side, that this is not their story. I love that.
The 2016 Vision 21 Crime Victims Research Award goes to Dr. Ann P. DePrince. The 2016 Tomorrow's Leaders Award goes to Miki K. Nishizawa. The 2016 Special Courage Award goes to Brenda Tracy. The 2016 Special Courage Award goes to Kim Case.
So let's give all of our recipients one more round of applause. And please be on the lookout. We start the process for next year's ceremony pretty quickly after the ceremony ends. So the nomination process will open up, and we will send out lots of information on that. There's going to be a reception out in the foyer, so please take a few minutes to congratulate the award recipients and mingle with the other guests. So again, thank you very much. Thank you, AAG Mason, and we'll see you in the foyer in a few minutes.
You want?
Can I get one with you? Let's go with you. How about one with...
You saw me and got hands.
Ahorita no, suelta bien. Eso rápido.
But thank you so much.
Well, who's going to take a picture?